Welcome to the Pat White Show.
So, if you get an opportunity, I would appreciate you clicking on the like if you like it, and subscribing if you want to, and apparently it'll help me out. Beyond that, hope you enjoy what I'm doing. Well, what do you say we have Cracker Barrel talk time? That's right, once again, Cracker Barrel comes up on the menu. But here's something a little bit different maybe you don't know about. All right, Cracker Barrel is now renaming itself again. You see, they did that Bud Light disaster by getting rid of the guy sitting next to the Cracker Barrel and going to a new glitzy style, sort of like a Denny's. Well, apparently that didn't work out too well. There's been a huge backlash, and they have now saying, okay, we're going to put the guy back on with a Cracker Barrel. But what are they doing with the inside of the restaurants? Are they still going to try to do the big makeover, getting rid of the country style look and turn it into a Denny's, like I said? All right, here's something you probably don't know. You go into Cracker Barrel, you have to go through the general store where you end up buying $20 worth of candy and trinkets, or you even get in the place. But when you're sitting there at your table waiting to be served, they have this little triangle. You've probably seen it. Little triangle with these little golf pigs in it. These little ball markers, not ball markers, but setting up your teeing up your ball. Now, there's a whole bunch of these little tees, and the idea is to play a game almost like checkers, like you try to eliminate the tees. Now, on the block itself, it's right in the wood. Here's what it says. You get only one left. You get one left, you're a genius. You get two left, you're pretty smart. If you have 3 pins left, well, you're just plain dumb. And if you've got 4 more left and you can't do it, you're an ignoramus. You're an idiot. That's what it used to be when Cracker Barrel was Cracker Barrel, before it became the new Cracker Barrel. Because on the inside, aside from changing the look from the country quaintness to a Denny's, they've also changed the pig game. The pig game no longer says what I was telling you before. No. The pig game has been changed, because now it says, number 1, you got 1 pig left, you're a genius. You have 2, it says, rocking the chair, but not the game. And then finally, number 3 says, well, you need to try over again. Don't be embarrassed. Start over again. Really? We've gone that soft with the pig game? Well, gee whiz, you got 3 left. Don't feel embarrassed. Try over again. You'll do better. Please. That's not the way things work in the real world. You fail, someone goes, oh, don't be embarrassed. Just try over. No, you get up and you say, hey, I failed. I learned something. And every time you fail, you learn something you didn't know before. And eventually you're going to say, I learned all the things I fail at, so I'm going to try something that's going to work. Well, here with the pig game, that's exactly what they did. So yes, their stock at Cracker Barrel, it dropped 12%. They've lost a whole bunch of money. They're changing their signs, now changing them back. But they changed the pig game. And that tells you exactly what the problem is. This Julie Masino, who became the CEO back in 2023, she's about as far progressive as it gets. And the majority owners of Cracker Barrel are 2 particular hedge funds. One is BlackRock, the second Ventura. They are about as DEI as you can get. And they're pushing all that stuff onto those stores that they own the majority of. So now you understand what's going on, folks. Yes, Cracker Barrel is, well, putting the name back, putting the man back next to the barrel, sitting there because that's a real person, the uncle of the guy who created the Cracker Barrel. By the way, I think he passed away in 1998. But they're going back to that. But what about the things they did inside? And now you realize they changed the pig game. And that tells you everything you need to know. It's not that you're now an ignoramus. No, don't feel embarrassed. Try again. Wussies. That's what's going on, folks. Now you know something about Cracker Barrel you didn't know before. But now you have been advised. Act accordingly. Well, for this particular story, I'm going to tell you, I thought I would wear a little hat that my daughter gave me, honoring the fact that I used to fly this particular airplane. So, what I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes, well, I come to know a little bit about because, frankly, something I wouldn't want to go through. Here's the story. This is about United Airlines, flight number 1677 from San Francisco to sunny Mexico. People going down for a vacation to get away. Who knows? Going to have a good time. Well, as flights are, they got delayed a little bit on the tarmac. Paperwork usually is a deal, and so people are sitting there waiting for the flight to go, and everybody gets a little bit anxious about that, not happy about it. Well, one passenger decided that he would go use a restroom. Nothing wrong with doing that on a flight. Hey, you got to go, you got to go. Well, he decided he was going to do something rather than using the facilities. He was going to use the bathroom for a place to smoke. Now, smoking on airlines used to be acceptable. Back in the old days, yeah, they had smoking on airlines. Then they had the non-smoking section, the smoking section. And eventually, they got rid of the whole thing. Smoking is not allowed on airlines. Now, this gentleman decided to smoke something, well, rather than a cigarette. This gentleman decided to light up a blunt. That's what he did. Now, when you light up one of those things, chances are pretty good the aroma of a burning marijuana cigarette is going to, well, it's going to get under the door. It's going to get past the door. And in an enclosed environment that an airplane is, people are going to, well, detect it. Flight attendants, they know what they're smelling. And if it goes throughout the plane, it's got a circulation system in the airplane. The air is moving in that airplane because the equipment does this. And it moves to all portions of the airplane because, well, on the airplane, everybody's got to breathe, including the crew. Well, so here's what happens. The gentleman who was smoking the blunt in the boys' room was removed from the aircraft because that's against the law. Smoking is bad. Smoking blunts on the aircraft, marijuana, if you will, even worse. So he was removed from the aircraft. But here's what the aircraft commander did. He said, hey, I ain't going to fly. You're going to have to find another crew. And that delayed the entire process, having to unload all the people, get them off the aircraft, take all their bags off, and find another crew. Now, a lot of people on the aircraft were visibly angered about that. How could this pilot do that? He wasn't smoking that. Well, let me tell you something, folks. In the world of airlines, in the world, or in the military, by the way, because the same thing works this way too, you undergo random drug testing. It happens in the airlines. Now, if an incident like this showing up that, hey, somebody was smoking dope on the airplane, chances are the people who run the anti-doping situation on airlines are going to say, hey, we're going to test that crew out just to make sure they were not under the influence. Now you're going to say, wait a minute, a person can't be under the influence of, secondhand marijuana smoke. If it shows up in your bloodstream on a drug test in the airlines or in the military, you can lose your job. Now, this gentleman, the pilot of this plane, was 35 years of age. He said, I got another 30 years in my career, and I'm not going to potentially destroy my career over some idiot smoking dope in the men's room or the restroom, call it what you will. So he said, no, I'm not going to fly it. And you know what? He has every right to do that. You may not like it. It may upset you. You may say that's totally wrong. But hey, he has the right to do that as the aircraft commander. Because a drug test could find all kinds of stuff. But if you know that someone was smoking marijuana in your area and you get tested and they test deep enough, they can find it. And believe me, with the airlines, you can have your career gone in a heartbeat. Same thing in the military. You find that, you could be gone in a heartbeat. That's why random drug tests are so scary to a lot of people. Keep a lot of folks honest. I commend this captain for what he did. He did the right thing. He said, can't fly, get another crew. Ultimately, they did, and ultimately that plane left and got down to Mexico, and people enjoying the sun and the fun, whatever they're doing. But the crew who said, no, we're not going to fly, made the right decision. And frankly, I would back them up. And anyone who understands flying, the military, and random drug testing do the same thing. Now you know. You know, in the world, many of us think about the things that are most important to us: our family, our lives, our faith, whatever. But one of the big things you should be concerned about with is your reputation. Whether it's your personal reputation or your business reputation, that's very much important because that establishes what people think of you or your company. Well, we've just had an incident here in the city that may cause the reputation of one particular business to be tarnished somewhat. Now, can that business survive? Well, that's a little too early to tell right now. Some would say it's premature because here's what's happened. A local restaurant, the Longhorn Steakhouse, located on Lima Road over there by the Costco and Kelly Chevrolet, apparently a customer noticed a cockroach in their salad, and apparently it was checked and it was determined that there was more than one. Now, all that being considered, the Allen County Health Department stepped in and do what they do, and that's to inspect the facility and found additional problems, namely cockroaches. Well, that can happen at any business, believe me. Any restaurant business where there's food or anything like that, well, cockroaches are liable to show up. That's why there's pest control services and procedures that are done by companies to ensure that any problems involving cockroaches or other insects don't become a problem, especially at a restaurant where food is being served. So, the Allen County Health Department forced the restaurant to close. Now, the close only took place for about, like it says, 24 hours or so, possibly a little bit longer than that. But the restaurant is allowed to reopen. The problem is this: image. What does it say about the image of any company? In this case, the Longhorn Steakhouse. How does that affect their image? Will people say, hey, I'm not going to eat there because they had something bad happen? Well, folks, this can happen at any restaurant. And frankly, it does more than you think. It happens in people's homes. You find animals, critters, insects in your food, in your pantry. Now, does that make you say, well, I'm not going to eat anymore in my own home? No, it doesn't mean that. You fix the problem and, well, sort of start over for what it's worth. In my belief, the Longhorn Steakhouse people are going to have to work extra hard to make sure that they regain the company's and the people's trust. Because if I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to spend money on a meal, I want to make sure my meal is safe. There's an old saying in the restaurant business: the front of the house isn't clean, neither is the back of the house. Now, do I think this is going to be a fatal flaw to the Longhorn Steakhouse? No, I don't believe so. A momentary interruption, a small hiccup, if you will. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. But one would hope they learn from this. One would hope they make their inspection procedures are a lot more stringent, and they're very much more, well, on the ball. Watch for signs. See what's going on. Make sure the procedures are properly followed. If they do, I believe the public will come back. It may take a while, but I believe the public will say, okay, things happen, and they do happen. But should they be held as a fatal flaw in this particular store? No, I don't believe so. Yes, they're going to have a rough spot for a while, but I believe they'll make it. And I believe they're lucky because sometimes it doesn't work out that way. This time, if they're proper, they do the right things and admit they had a problem and solve the problem and make people understand that, then they will survive. Just something in the world that you have to live with, because reputation means everything. This is one of those stories that I'm really not thrilled with doing, but it is current popular culture stuff. This is what's happening in today's world. And while it's not political, it's still probably one of the biggest stories in the headlines that are happening on radio, TV, newspaper, People magazine, call it what you will. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to cover it. Here it is. Taylor Swift and, well, Travis Kelce are engaged. There you go, folks. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are engaged. Gee whiz. Let's see, they're both 35 years of age. They're both unmarried. They're both well past their youngster years, being in the late teens, 20s. At 35 years of age, you better be starting doing something. Because if you don't, time's going to start marching biological clocks to being what they are. So they're both extremely well known. You got Mr. Kelce, big tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. You got Taylor Swift, big singer, big star, big, whatever she is. She's big money. She's worth billions of dollars, and he ain't bad either. But there they are, two together, and they started dating back in 2023. Apparently, he had a crush on her when he saw her and was trying to get a hold of her, and it didn't work out. This and that. There's a yin and yang going on here. Gave him a bracelet with his phone number on, and frankly, I don't care. Yes, I have seen the reaction of people. It's like when the Beatles came to the United States in the 1960s. People are that dumb and stupid and yelling and screaming. I saw a news person from the White House, who should be a little more responsible, the moment she saw that Swift and Kelce were engaged, she got all aflutter. Are you kidding? You're an adult. Act like it. But no, apparently it's a big deal. The only reason I'm saying all this is because everything on the media is going to be covering this from A to Z. And there you've seen the pictures, the romantic proposal he made in the Garden of Flowers on one knee. Traditional way of proposing marriage, I suppose. But apparently, according to his father, to Travis's father, they got engaged a couple of weeks prior to that. But here's the thing you should know. What the ring? Well, this is probably going to create a craze now that every woman is going to want this style of ring because this is the style of ring that Travis gave Taylor Swift. It's called a cushion cut diamond. It looks like sort of like a pillow. And it's a nice diamond. It's a lovely, it's an 8 carats, 8-carat ring. Okay, carrying that around in your finger. We're somewhere in the range of $1 million, $1.2 million. And I presume that Mr. Travis can afford that because that's exactly what she'd want. Now, here's the other thing. Will a marriage like this, when it does occur, and I don't know when it will it require a prenup? Now, neither of them live in California. He lives in Kansas City area. He's got a lovely home, a beautiful property. She does too. Matter of fact, she's got properties everywhere in the frickin' country. But will it require a prenup? My guess is yes, it will. Why? To protect everybody's interest. So it doesn't turn into be a giant free-for-all brawl. The only people who get rich will be attorneys if something were to happen in the relationship. Now, Ms. Taylor Swift has been accepted into his family. You've seen her at the Kansas City games, at the family in the press, in the suite, having a good time, talking, laughing, and scratching, whatever they do at these football games. And you've seen him chase her around to her Eras tour that she was doing all around the world. And there he was standing there watching the show. Okay, is that true love? Well, it's certainly infatuation. I'll give you that. So there they are. They are now engaged. I have no idea when a wedding is going to be set, but it's going to be the top of the news on every single news show from here to there and everywhere. Now, have I talked about it? Yes. Am I going to talk about it anymore? I certainly hope not. But at least I can say I've checked it off my list of things I've got to do. And now it's done. And now go forth and let's get into something really interesting. Like politics? Who knows? That's all I got for now. Well, what do you say I take you back in history a little bit? Maybe something you may recall, but then again, maybe you won't. Here's the deal. When I was young, growing back up and many, many years ago, you'd go and you'd get an iced tea or a Coke or whatever it is. So let's say you went to the Big Boy. Remember, the Big Boys used to exist back years ago. And you'd get a Coke or a 7-Up or whatever you happen to like. Or some people even had tea. And they would give you a straw. And you would unwrap the straw and you'd put it in your tea or your coffee, but you'd kind of play with the straw a little bit. And you could actually bite down on the straw too, because the straw was kind of easy to work with because the straw was made of paper. Yes, it was kind of a wax-coated paper, but nonetheless, it was a paper straw. And it was kind of like a white and green color, or possibly a red and green color, depending on the store where you went to and what color straw they used. But it was a straw. Plain old everyday paper straw. Well, it turns out those were still being manufactured even today. But today, well, we're in August, but come October, the company that makes those straws is closing. It's called Hoffman Group. Hoffman Group was originally known as Aardvark Straws. I don't know back when they got started, but Aardvark Straws, well, those are the straws that were made back in the old days. But they were bought out by this Hoffman company up from Wisconsin back in 2018 and have been operating. But they recently have announced they're closing. Turns out that back in May, they issued what is known as a warn notice saying that, hey, we're going to be closing and laying people off. Required to do that. So come October, it's going to be 40 people laid off. And then back in November, another 7. Total of about 53 people are losing their job permanently because the straw manufacturing company here in Fort Wayne is closing. Now you think about that. Paper straws, we don't use them anymore. You go now to any restaurant and you get your straw, you unpeel the paper on the outside, it's made of plastic. It's now having the flexible straws you can get. You buy at the store, those flexible things. Kids love those. But the paper straw that we have all used for, well, decades upon decades is now becoming an artifact of the past. And the company that made those, Aardvark Straws, became, well, Hoffman Group, is closing their doors and saying sayonara. And that's kind of sad when you think about it, something that everybody remembers in their youth, and yet the young people today, they wouldn't understand a paper straw. Matter of fact, paper straws, when you chewed on them enough, you could kind of break them down, you could kind of peel them open. And that's what the thing was. That was sort of a toy, if you will, something you played with. Paper straws you could bite into, you could bend and twist and whatever. And they were paper. You used them for all sorts of stuff. But nowadays, straws are all made of plastic. Now people have their own drinking straws, which are made of, well, bamboo, metal, whatever. But the paper straw has now taken its last breath as the Hoffman Group is shutting their doors and putting an end to the era that most of us grew up with who are, well, pretty old. Young folks have no idea what it was. But the death of the paper straw is now upon us with the closing of the Hoffman Group. And now you know. If you're one of those millions of people that get your cable television service through what is called YouTube TV. Now, YouTube TV is sort of like, well, Comcast was, or DirecTV, or any of those other network providers. They're simply a provider of television via the internet. Instead of going through a satellite service or through a Comcast private company like that, YouTube TV does the same identical thing. They've got the channels. They carry the channels that most of us watch. And frankly, they've been doing it for a while. But here's what happens, and you have to understand this. Every year, they have a contract. Each network that is broadcast on YouTube TV has a contract, and the YouTubes and all the other organizations, whatever channel it is paid a certain amount of money by the provider, who in this case would be Google. And Google is paying those various providers, whatever channel it is, to carry their signal. Because, well, hey, if they're going to carry their signal and charge you and I money, because YouTube TV does charge us money, the networks are saying, hey, we want a cut of that. You're going to carry our service, you got to pay us money. Well, that's where things are ended up right now with Fox News, the Fox Sports Channel. Because here we're going into the start of the NCAA football season. And let's be honest, Fox has a whole lot of sports, college sports games, and a whole lot of other things going on. that people like to watch. So a deadline is approaching. And the deadline is such that, well, if they don't reach an agreement on what the folks at Fox Network are willing to take given to them by Google to provide their service on their particular Google channel, which is YouTube TV, well, they're going to say, we're going to turn the switch off. Now, that is currently scheduled for Wednesday. Today is the 27th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Will it happen? Well, nobody knows yet because, well, we're not there. More often than not, they come to an agreement. And whatever the agreement is, you have to understand this amount of increase that Fox News will probably demand for their station to be covered and carried on YouTube TV is going to be passed along to you and me. That's right. Whatever they pay, whatever Google has to pay Fox to carry their signal, that amount of money is going to be passed along to you and me. So get ready, folks. If Fox stays, the chances are pretty good your rates, what you're paying for YouTube TV, is going to go up. That's just the way it works. It happened that way with Comcast, happened that way with DirecTV. It's happened that way with all these people who deliver cable services or channel services to your home. It's not the prettiest picture, but it is the way negotiations work. And right now, each side is saying, hey, believe our side, you believe your side, whatever. I'm just telling you what's going on. If you're one of those people who subscribes to the YouTube TV, and I happen to be one of those, that right now I may lose the Fox network. And if I do, well, then I've got to find it someplace else, right? Well, that may be inconvenient. Could I do it? Probably yes. But the problem is it's going to take time and effort. So right now, yes, I'm comfortable with the YouTube TV. Yes, I have to pay money for it every month, just like everybody else does. And whatever Fox demands out of the folks over at Google to carry their service, because right now they're the hottest news network on TV, let's be honest. They've got the shows people watch, let's be honest. Fox News, the Fox News channel is America's, well, favorite channel. And that's something that, well, nobody can argue with. It's just the numbers, and the numbers are there. So, will the deal be worked out before 5 p.m. on the 27th, which is today? I do not know. If it isn't, well, now you know what's going to happen. If it is, get ready, because you're going to be paying more money in your monthly subscription for YouTube TV. Well, if you happen to watch the latest Indy game down in Indianapolis, you may have noticed something interesting about, well, the look of the stadium on the inside. Before the game, every single seat in that stadium had what it looked like an emblem, except it wasn't an emblem. It was a T-shirt. The T-shirt had connecting CC, two C's, CC, on every seat. In fact, even the seats on the sideline had the CC. What were they? T-shirts commemorating the new Caitlin Clark logo. That's right, folks. The new Caitlin Clark logo has just been announced and sort of released. What they've done is they've put out the T-shirt with a new logo, which is a CC, because even her teammates call her CC. And frankly, that's going to be the style. That's going to be the look. And people are going to take a look at that CC and go, yep, that's Caitlin Clark. Now, October the 1st, all of her other line comes out. I mean, it's got clothes, it's got shoes, it's got apparel, you name it. CC is going to be out there. And I can tell you right now, probably a lot of people are going to be buying that stuff. But there was a word out that said, well, you know, other players in the WNBA, they've got their signature lines. And is the one from Caitlin Clark stupid? Is it dumb? Is it done by a first grader? Take a look at those other ones. Now, you tell me, when you look at those, does any one of those tell you exactly who we're talking about? I mean, can you recognize what that symbol means for any of those particular players? You can, you're better than me, but I do know what CC means. CC means Caitlin Clark. Now, she's got a $28 million deal with Nike. $28 million, folks. She can pretty much go start up her own league if she wants to. But now, well, the WNBA is getting down to contract decision time. And the word now is the ladies of the WNBA are planning on, well, calling a strike because their contract already ends up the end of the season, which is coming up here in a couple of weeks. So by doing that, they're going to say, well, we strike until we get more money, the kind of money we want. Now, remember, the WNBA has also come out and said, tell you what, we'll take your pay from $67,000. We'll take your pay up to $250,000 minimum, maximum of $1 million. It's not enough. So you know what the owners are going to do in the WNBA? They're going to lock them out. I'm just telling you. Now, is that going to affect Caitlin Clark with her new merchandise coming up? The new CC? Not even close. People are going to buy that stuff up because she is a phenom. She is something that, well, take a look at all the people attending the games. They're kids. They want autographs. Caitlin's going out there. She's doing autographs with all the kids. That's what's coming, folks. If the kids like her, when those new merchandise comes out, Mommy, Daddy, I want the Caitlin Clark jersey. I want the Caitlin Clark shoes. That's how it's going to be. She's going to do well. And frankly, she probably deserves it because she's being beaten up by every other woman in the WNBA because they despise her. Because she's white, she's straight, and she's earning a whole lot more money than they ever will. Just a plain fact of life, folks. How's that going to work out? And are the Fever going to make the playoffs? Well, got a few more games to figure that out. 3-4, I believe. We'll find out at the end if they do. But regardless, I don't think she's going to be playing, well, even in the playoffs. I think she's going to have to wait it out until next year. But right now, her new clothing line, her new shoes, the new look, the new logo, CC. That's the latest talk, and that, my friends, will be the latest thing selling on the market.